Okay, so I thought I would do a small video on a repair that I'm carrying out on this bank of carbs. So this is a set of carbs that we've restored for one of the projects here in the shop. We completely stripped these carbs, vapor blasted the bodies, replated all the components and reassembled them. And we've been basically tuning these carbs up on the bike, which is also going through a full restoration. One of the issues we've encountered is we're getting air leakage on the butterfly side of the carbs going into the inlets. So we can get the bike to run reasonably well, but if you whack the throttle, sometimes it'll hang a little bit before it comes down to idle, which is typically a lean condition. And also, if we drop kind of just below the recommended idle level, which is 1500 RPM on this, it starts to get lumpy. And what we did while we were doing that tuning, we did a quick test. Basically, we took some brake cleaner while the bike was running at tick over. We sprayed brake cleaner around the rubber inlets here, which are brand new, and the butterfly shafts, basically the throttle shafts for each of the carbs that controls the butterfly that you can see down in there. What happens when you do that? Obviously, there's a vacuum on the inlet side here while the bike is running. It's typically drawing a vacuum because it's sucking air-fuel mixture coming into the engine. So if you spray any kind of easy start or brake cleaner around this area here, and there's an air leak that's sucking air in, not through the front of the inlet of the carb, but through some other mechanism, it'll cause the bike to rev up and hang at a high revs for some time. So we did that trick. I first sprayed around the boots, but no issue there. They're brand new boots. We wouldn't expect that. But as soon as I sprayed around the middle set of carbs, around the throttle linkage, which you can see in here, which runs through, there's a shaft, runs through from the linkage here, and it runs through to the butterfly. The butterfly sits in a slot on that shaft. As soon as I sprayed brake cleaner around here, the bike would immediately rev up. We did it on the throttle linkages on these carbs, so 3 and 4, that was fine. We did it on 1 and 2 here, that was fine. But when we did 2 to 3 here, that's where we saw the issue. Now, when we rebuilt these, we did actually have the throttle shafts apart because we needed to replate all the components. So we removed the butterfly and then removed the shafts. But when we reassembled it, because you can't get the components anymore, the seals, which are basically felt seals, we reused the originals. And they looked in okay condition, but clearly now with the carbs assembled, there's a problem with this, at least with the middle set. Now, as I said, those components are not available, but there's a bunch of aftermarket parts for various carbs. So what I've done is I've basically found all the ones I could find on eBay. I've got felt seals here for various carbs, and also some rubber seals here, shaft seals. And some of these are 8mm, so the shafts here are 8mm. Some are a little bit narrower, and they have varying outer diameters as well. So what I'm going to do, pull the carbs apart. I'll film that. I'll then pull the shafts out, and I'll show you how to do that. And we will experiment with these seals, and hopefully between the various sizes I've got, because unfortunately for these, typically when you're buying these off eBay, for instance, they don't give you the full details on all the sizes. Sometimes they'll tell you the inner shaft size, for instance, 8mm for some of these, but often they're just saying it's for a specific bike and set of carbs, which are not the carbs I'm trying to fix. But, you know, based on what I could tell online, they look similar or close. So we're going to hope that some of these are a direct fit. If not, we may be able to fettle these seals a little bit to make them fit. So if the outer diameter is not quite right, or the inner diameter is not quite right, I think we can still do something with them. That's enough waffle about that. Yeah, I'm gonna just set the camera up now, and I'll get cracking on pulling these carbs apart, and I'll bring you back once we've got them apart and you can see what the seal arrangement looks like, and we'll experiment with some of these seals. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is take the boots off the carbs. That'll just make it a little bit easier for me to work on. What I have is 3 trays here, which I'll use one for each of the carbs. It's very important when you're dismantling the carbs to keep the individual components for each carb in the same tray, in its own tray. Reason being, quite often, things like the outer carbs will have different jet sizes to the inner carbs, both the pilot jet and the main jet. You don't want to mix those up, so if you just throw it all in one box, sometimes it, you know, if you didn't check beforehand, you won't know which jet goes with which. Plus, I like to if you're reusing the original parts, I tend to like to keep the same needles with the same needle seats and things like that, because they wear together, and when you start switching them around, you can get issues with the float needles not sealing, things like that. Anyway. Yeah, I think we'll focus first on this carb, because I know for sure it's leaking on this side of the shaft. So what I'm going to show you now is how to remove the butterfly. Now, I don't recommend, so butterfly removal is very tricky. I would only recommend it if it was the absolute necessity, i.e. you would, doing a high-end restoration like we are here, and all of this linkage here, the spring and everything else is all rusted up. Because you cannot get this spring off at all without removing the butterfly and then pulling the shaft. Now, from factory, they were really designed for you not to be able to disassemble them. But again, sometimes it's just a necessity. So generally, with the butterflies, they'll come with 2 screws M3 or M2 screws, and on the back of the screw, which I don't know if you'll be able to see here, once they're screwed in, generally the back of the screw is punched or cut and then twisted to prevent that screw coming out, because obviously if that screw unwinds, drops down into your inlet and into the engine, that spells disaster for your engine. So these are secured by basically deforming the back of the screw to just make it impossible for it to wind out. Obviously, if we need to get the butterfly out, we need to remove those. Now, generally when I'm reassembling carbs, if I've had to remove the butterfly, last resort, I put new screws back in and I actually red Loctite the screws. I do not punch the back of the screws because it's very difficult to do that unless you've got, special equipment. You can very easily bend the shafts by trying to put pressure on the back of the screw. So I use red Loctite, and I've never had an issue with that. As it happens right now, these are not Loctite because after I do a restoration, I initially just fit them with, well, not red Loctite, they're blue Loctite. I just fit them with blue until I'm happy with that they're working fine. And there's no issues with the seals or anything, and then I will red Loctite them. So in this case, because it may be that you've got to remove these a couple of times when fine-tuning the carb. So you can see there I've removed the two screws. What you do now, turn the butterfly, towards you, and then I use a pair of long nose pliers that have got no serrated edges on them, so they're smooth pliers, to grab the disc and then work the disc out of the slot that it's in. Be very careful when you're doing this because the disc is soft brass and it's very easy to deform. So make sure you try to pull it out evenly like this. That's the disc out. So now you can see just the shaft in there with the disc out. And now if we remove the nut on this side, again, I wouldn't attempt this unless you've got a set of carbs that you don't mind experimenting on, and it's easy to replace them. It's a model that's not too rare. In this case, we're doing this work. I mean, ordinarily I would avoid this at all costs, but this is a very rare set of carbs, and I can get replacements, but they're hugely expensive, and most likely the replacements are going to have similar issues as well. Okay, so I've taken the arm off this side. We can see the shaft now is not held in. So all I do now, pull the shaft out, spring comes off. This was replated because we've had these apart already. And you can see the shaft there. Okay, yep, so as you saw, we got the carbs apart, relatively straightforward. I've removed the butterfly from the shaft and pulled the shaft out, and now you can see the sealing arrangement. So on this side, this is the direction in which the shaft goes in, like so, and on this side there's typically a felt washer or seal that goes on here, and that sits in that recess there on the carb body. And then on this side, there's actually a press fit. It's only lightly fitted in, metal ring and the seal sits inside that ring there. So yeah, so I'm going to pop this out, and what we're going to do is see in the pack of seals we've got, if we've got one that's going to fit directly in here in this recess and be the right diameter for the shaft, and then we're going to pop this out and see if we've got one that'll sit inside this ring. Okay, so I don't know how easy this is going to be to see on camera. I guess we can see. So you can see the old felt seal in that ring, and yeah, I mean it's pretty worn out. It's not surprising that it's leaking. What we're going to do now is try to find the two seals. If I've got two seals out of this lot that fit nicely, I think I'm going to go through all of the carbs and redo the seals. Okay, so yeah, I just tried a couple of different seals. I was kind of hoping, I like the look of these rubber shaft seals, but they're just a little bit too bigger outer diameter. But I was able to use one of the sets of felt seals, and I'm very happy with that. So if you see, it's a nice thick seal, width-wise, fits in the ring okay. So that's going to do nicely. So what we'll be able to do now is just press fit that back into the recess, and I think that's going to work great for that side, and then we'll find a seal for the other side. Okay, so we're on the other side now. I have found a seal which I kind of like for this position. So anyway, I'm going to try and assemble it with that, see how it is. If not, I have tried the rubber seal, and that actually fits pretty good as well. So I think if I can't make it work with the felt seal, I'll make it work with the rubber seal. So hopefully you can see I've inserted the shaft now with the felt seal on this side. It's closed that gap up fairly nice. I'm pretty happy with that, and we've got a really good seal on this side of the shaft. So yeah, and the shaft is a little bit of friction there. You're going to expect that, but the spring should be able to overcome that. So I'm actually pretty happy with it. Now that's definitely, there's a bit of pushback on that felt seal there, but once I've got the retaining nut on here, that shouldn't be an issue. That'll compress on. So we'll put the retainer nut back on this and reinsert the butterfly, and then that's pretty much it. We'll do the other three carbs. I think I've got enough seals for the other three carbs. So if we can get all these shafts to seal up like they're brand new, yeah, that should resolve our hanging and idle issues. Okay, so I've put the spring on. Make sure there's proper tension on that spring, and you can see, even though we've got brand new seals in there, it's snapping back nicely. So what we're going to do now, before you put the retaining nut and the actuator on this side, we're going to fit the butterfly. And what we do, you'll see the slot, I'm going to reinstall that, and then to seat the butterfly correctly, you insert it and get the holes lined up as best as you can, and then you just let the thing come back on the spring, and the butterfly will orientate itself within the bore, and then you can use a small screwdriver just to make sure the holes are roughly lined up, and then get the screws in. But it's important you first make sure that the butterfly is self-orientated with the bore, because it has to seal all the way around the butterfly, otherwise it's going to stick. Okay, one other thing I should mention, which is very important, is before you remove the butterfly, put either with a Dremel or a dot punch, just put a mark in the front lower part of the butterfly, because it's extremely important when you put the butterfly back, it's in the exact same orientation. So the face that was facing outwards is facing outwards, and the lower bit, because there's chamfers on the edge of the butterfly that mate up with the surface of the carb, and you don't want to get those the butterfly upside down or back to front. Okay, so you can see I've got that butterfly in there, and it's centered now perfectly. You see it snaps back and it doesn't stick. If it's off, if it's even the slightest bit out of alignment with the bore, it'll jam and you'll feel it stick as you pull back. But that's perfect. So now I can put the 2 screws in, tighten it up, then put the retaining nut on this side. Okay, so we're all back together, and butterfly in and screwed in, and you can see nice and smooth action and snaps back, exactly what you're looking for. And also just check side to side movement, and there's nothing. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. Yeah, I'll just put you now on time lapse while I do the other 3. And I'll bring you back once the carbs are back on the bike, and we'll see if it's improved the running. Okay, so I've got the carb bank together now, all the springs in. Make sure you fit these end springs, the float springs. Everything's good. Everything's snapping back nicely. So what I've got to do now is balance the carbs. So to do this, there's 3 adjustment screws. What we're going to do, wind out the idle screw, and then we adjust the screws so that the slide at the bottom of the slide might be difficult to see. There's a hole in the carb. If I just move it back, you'll see the holes there. There you go. You can just see slightly 2 holes. Get it to focus. We're just going to line them up so they're all I line them up just so they're in between the 2 holes. And then that'll give you your initial balance, and then when it's on the bike we'll use the vacuum gauges to set it up properly.